Hello all. This is a placement test assignment and this is the presentation of first assignment of Excel, the medical insurance cost analysis project. So in this presentation I am going to present you all my observations and all the findings which I have uh, got during this project. So let's move on to the first slide. So this is all the objective is to just analyze how medical insurance cost is being affected using Excel to understand how demographic, lifestyle and regional factors impact medical expenses. The other objectives are identification of key drivers of medical charges, analyzing the effect of BMI, smoking, gender, dependence, and region, applying statistical and correlation analysis, and in the end, building an interactive Excel dashboard for stakeholders. In the picture, you can see a sample of the dataset which we have for this analysis. So, what are the problem statements? These are the 10 questions which have been asked. So, we will solve these questions and then we will come to a conclusion and answer these questions. So, let's get started. First question was basic statistics and data understanding. So, for this, I used functions like average, median, standard deviation. So we can see that an average of $13,370 was a medical charge per person. BMI was 30.7 and age was 39 on an average. Median was of $9,382 of medical charges. BMI on an median was 30.4 and age was 39 while the standard deviation was of $12,110. BMI was 30.7 and age was 14. Next question was of gender analysis. So I used average if function to do an average if certain condition is met. So for males, the medical charges were $13,956 on an average, while for females it was less. It was lesser, and you can see that BMI is also less for females, while BMI of male is higher on an average. While the female ages on an average is more than the male ages on average. So the conclusion was males have higher average costs and BMI than females. So let's move on to third question. So third question was the impact of smoking on medical costs. So we can see that non-smokers have a much less, very much less medical charges in comparison to the smokers. While non-smokers have $8,434 of average charges, in contrast to the smokers who have $32,050 on an average, and this is so much more. You can see this in this graph here. Smokers average charges are much more higher than the non-smokers. Let's move on to the next question. We have dependent analysis. So this question was for the analysis of how much more members in the family affect the medical charges. Obviously, this affects certainly, but not up to that mark. For families having 3 children is the most medical charged families, but after that it decreases. So we can see here that number 3, the person having families having 3 dependents or 3 children have the most medical charges, $15,355 on an average. Yes, another question was of correlation. So there is no correlation on charges to children or vice versa. We can see this scatter plot diagram. So this also shows there is no correlation with the medical costs. Let's move on to another question. Geographical insights. In this, for this question, I categorized data into four according to the four region: northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. And with this data, I found that southeast is the region having the most number of medical costs. You can see this here that southeast has $14,735 on an average medical costs, which is much more higher than of all remaining three regions. So we have a cost spending sequence. Southeast having the most expenses, then Northeast, then northwest, and the least is southwest. Southwest people are much more healthier than the southeast one. Now, next question is of BMI classification. In BMI classification, I found that most of the people are obese. They have BMI of more than 30. For calculating this, countifs and VLOOKUP function were used. And as you can see in this table, in this picture, most of the people are obese. Then on second number, overweight people are there, having BMI between 25 to 29.9. And on third number, they are normal people. And the least number of people is of underweight. So let's move on to another question. Advanced correlation analysis. So the question was of having a scatter plot for finding the correlation between medical charges and BMI. And surprisingly, there is no correlation between BMI and medical charges. BMI and medical charges are not correlated at all. This can also be seen in this chart, as well as the calculation using CO using core function. Now the other question is on smoking and region interaction. So as you can see, as as we have seen earlier, the southeast people are the most having the medical costs, and this this chart also says so. As you can see, southeast people, which are smokers, have the most total amount of charges, and you can also see this by this data. Let's move on to the next question. And this is the final question, which is of dashboard and pivot table. So here we have a summary for the medical charges and average BMI and charges. Of course, Southeast is a topper here, and we can choose the gender, the region, the smoker, as we have slicers for the following. And we have a pivot table which have all the information regarding BMI and charges for having categories like female and male, and subcategories for non-smokers and smokers. And we can get the average and sum of charges and BMI respectively. So this was all about my analysis. Thank you very much.